for some strange reason, Larry's back again, and we're going to do We Are What We Hated. And even though we inject some levity into this, I mean, I think you have to, because if you don't, you're going to go insane. With the developments that are taking place now, whether they're rapid or not, they are definitely starting to settle in. And what I think Larry's going to talk about today is the parallels distinctly between the Weimar Republic and where we are today. And I think that's one of the things that piqued my interest in Peikoff's book, The Ominous Parallels, for just that reason. So, Larry, again, thanks for coming back. And you are definitely not hitting a topic here that isn't, I would say, pronounced for those who have eyes to see.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to do just before I started talking about the Weimar Republic is I had a real nice surprise happen to me lately. William Ramsey, who's been on your show at least 2 or 3 times, who is the author of a book called The Prophet of Evil, Aleister Crowley, 9/11 and the New World Order. And I'm going to plug this book. I'm not going to make any money off this, but the guy was very nice, and he sent me this book as a gift, and he also sent me another book to read, which I'm going to return. But at any rate, I started reading Prophet of Evil, Aleister Crowley, and I've got to say it's one of the best books that I've read on the New World Order and on 9/11 of any books I've ever read. It's just a very well done book, and he's a fine guy and a good Christian, and I just want to put a shout out for that. And I'd like to read this is not his words, but it's from a book by John Coleman called The Committee of 300, and he has a quote from him in here from that book, and it says, and this is the best summary I've heard yet of the New World Order. It says, a one-world government and one-unit monetary system under permanent, non-elected, hereditary oligarchists who self-elect from among their numbers in the form of a feudal system as it was in the Middle Ages. In this one-world entity, population will be limited by restrictions on the number of children per family, diseases, wars, famine, until 1 billion people who are useful to the ruling class in areas which will be strictly and clearly defined remain as the total population. There will be no middle class, only rulers and servants. All laws will be uniform under a legal system of world courts practicing the same unified code of laws backed up by a one-world government, police force, and a one-world unified military to enforce laws in all former countries where no national boundaries shall exist. The system will be on the basis of a welfare state. Those who are obedient and subservient to the one-world government will be rewarded with the means to live. Those who are rebellious will simply be starved to death or declared outlaws, thus a target for anyone who wishes to kill them. Privately owned firearms or weapons of any kind will be prohibited. That's an awfully bleak view of the future, but I believe that the man is right on with his appraisal of how things will be in the future. And again, the name of the book by William Ramsey is Prophet of Evil, Aleister Crowley, 9/11 and the New World Order. And I encourage anybody out there in the listening audience, if you can, find a way to get a hold of that book and do a read there, because it will definitely benefit you.
William is an honest researcher, and he's not motivated by profit, but by having to get this out. And we talked about this, and he said, I just have to do this. Mm-hmm. And I understand that. It's good to hear that again when someone says, for better or for worse, I have to do this. Because there's nothing like that. There's nothing any better that comes out of the human spirit than something that drives someone to say, look, I have no choice. I got to do this. So, and folks, I mean, you could do a lot worse than checking into him and his website. And I'll post the links to that because you've mentioned that, and the work that he's done, and he's been on several times, and we're really happy to have him. So we wish him Godspeed, because, there's one thing that you want him to be popular, and I put that in quotes, but you don't want to see him, lose what got him there, if you know what I mean.
Exactly.
And there's so many, and I'm saying he's going to do that, but there's so many researchers now that, I just walk away from it because, all of a sudden they got commercial and there went everything. So, yeah, great for you to mention that. I'm glad you did. And, And yeah, he'll come back to the scene of the crime, I'm sure, as we go on. All right. So having mentioned that, with that, I mean, is that also central to what you were going to talk about in this segment?
The reason I brought it up is kind of a lead into to what I'm going to talk about in Weimar, Germany. Weimar, Germany was what I believe a rough parallel of the U.S. as it is today, and maybe Western Europe in general too. But the point is that the real, I believe, of all the evil characters that were involved with bringing about the New World Order and to the stage that it is now, I could mention several people. Probably the two outside of Crowley that were most important would be Madame Helena Petrovna Blavatsky and also Adolf Hitler, who was a student of Blavatsky, and Crowley was a student of hers as well. And the reason I brought it up was that Crowley and the things that he laid out, and Crowley was very much someone who was into the idea of an aristocracy and having overlords in a modern feudal system. And that's what he was preaching in his evil philosophy, I guess you could call it. At any rate, the reason I brought that up was just kind of a lead-in to what we're talking about in Weimar, Germany. For anybody who's not aware of what we mean by Weimar, Germany, and that's a period of time from about 1918 to 1933 when the nation of Germany went through a transition from the old German imperial system under the Kaisers and went into a, quote, democracy. And then eventually it was taken over by Hitler and the Nazi Party. I was going to read from a book by a man named Piers Brendan. It's called The Dark Valley, a panorama of the 1930s. And I have a question or a comment, and if the global economy continues to weaken, then I think it's very probable the parallels will be more and more clear to people, and we're looking forward to a very dim period of time. He writes about Germany of 1923. The lost war and the cruel peace had reduced the new Weimar Republic to a condition bordering on anarchy. There was a rash of political assassinations. Riots and strikes proliferated. Poverty and hunger stalked the land. France's intransigent government demanded prompt payment of reparations fixed at the enormous sum of 132 billion gold marks. More insidious still, inflation was destroying the value of money like some financial cancer. When you consider that the Western powers had told Germany that they were going to have to pay 132 billion gold marks, and I don't know, that's probably 30 times as much in today's money, but it's a huge amount of money, and in gold to boot. It was just set up that Germany was going to be torn apart and its economy was going to be destroyed. And I think that was part of the whole idea, was to punish Germany. And it worked out real well for everybody in the long run. Hitler would rile the crowds by saying revolution would come when the farmers stopped selling food for currency, good only for papering his outhouse on the manure heap. Hitler pinned his faith in the revolt of the starving billionaires, Brendan writes. He knows that entrepreneur Hugo Stans, who said at the time that Bolshevism would have won the day in Germany, but that the government, in aiming to avoid paying reparations, engineered currency depreciation for the purposes of promoting cheap exports, thus exerting economic pressure on the Allies. But the reparations contributed to inflation and impacting the balance of trade, while undermining confidence in the government's ability to survive. The massive toll in cash and kind led to a severe budget deficit, which governments found themselves unwilling and unable to make up through taxation, so they printed money in ever-increasing quantities. In January 1919, there were 9 marks to the dollar. 3 years later, there were 192. Stimulated by the assassination of the Jewish foreign minister, Walter Rathenau, in 1922, the currency debauch worsened. And here's kind of a comparison. In July 1923, it took 353,412 marks to the dollar. In August of 1923, it took 4,620,455 marks to the dollar. In September of 1923, 98,860,000 marks to a dollar. Then in October of 1923, it took 25,260,208,000 marks to the dollar.
Yeah, all right.
And then in November of 1923, it took 4,200,000,000,000 marks to the dollar. And he says this is the most colossal inflation in history. And he writes, to produce this currency, 300 paper mills and 2,000 printing plants worked around the clock. Eventually, it cost more to print the notes than they were worth.
They were worth, yeah.
Banks had to take on more clerks to count the knots. They used the blank side of the notes as scrap paper because it was cheaper than buying pads.
Yeah.
Eventually, stacks of cash were not counted at all, but weighed or measured with a ruler. Goes on, life was transformed into a bizarre paper chase. Patrons of restaurants found their meals becoming more expensive as they ate. Factory workers saw their wages shrinking in value as they queued to collect them. However fast they ran to the shops, prices outstripped them. Shopkeepers indeed looked on their customer almost as thieves for taking goods, which could only be replaced at prohibitive expense. Peasants refused to sell their produce for paper money, saying, "We don't want any," quote, "Jew confetti from Berlin."
Oh.
Beggars rejected anything less than 1,000,000 marks. Some people paid in kind. Theater seats were sold for a couple of eggs. Prostitutes offered their services for cigarettes. And bureaucrats in the finance ministry took part of their salaries in potatoes. The flip side was, if you possessed any foreign currency, you were impossibly rich, for no one had enough marks to change anything but the smallest denominations. $10 would purchase a large modern house, while American tourists lit their cigarettes with 1,000,000-mark notes and pasted larger denominations on their suitcases, further exacerbating German chauvinism. In the words of one contemporary, Germany was a rapidly decaying corpse on which the birds of prey were swooping down from all directions. I think that's pretty apropos.
Well,
go ahead.
Let me ask you. I mean, we've all heard about the famous inflation.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, I've not gone into books. I mean, if I were in academia, I could find all the books that would explain all this crap. And, of course, I would like, fine. But, I mean, is there any reason that you found, and this may be an unfair question. I mean, you're not an economist, and you didn't go into this looking for that particular thing.
Mm-hmm.
But, why did it get so crazy in Germany at that time?
Well, it was the reparations. I mean, basically, the powers that be, the oligarchs, said, "Well, yeah, we'll pay them back, in marks," and the marks were useless. It basically kind of built on itself. That like he says, the government, in aiming to avoid paying reparations, engineered currency depreciation for the purposes of promoting cheap exports, thus exerting economic pressure on the Allies. Well, they screwed themselves in the process.
But I'm wondering, because why? I mean, in a sense, that's sound economic warfare.
Mm-hmm.
To do that, and then you would obviously start to, I guess, make inroads into some kind of economic dominance because your goods are preferable, and that would mean necessarily that your economy is becoming stronger. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's beyond anything in my arsenal as far as understanding this stuff, but it seems to me, and I refer back to a listener who wrote about wondering why, what were the reasons for World War II, and went into this whole economic thing as well. All right. So let me ask you: whatever Hitler and the National Socialists pulled off, mm-hmm. was it a solution, and did it pull them out of the mire that the Weimar Republic obviously created and lived with?
Well, I couldn't give you a really strong answer on that, but I can read from another article that talks about the Great Depression in Germany and how everything was affected in Weimar Germany. This is a document that's written by a man named Stephen Tunge, and it's simply titled Weimar Germany 1919 and 1933, and I'll read to you from that. The German economy's recovery after the inflation of 1923 had been financed by loans from the United States. Many of these short-term loans have been used to finance capital projects such as road building. State governments financed their activities with the help of these loans. German interest rates were high and capital flowed in. Large firms borrowed money and depended heavily on American loans. German banks took out American loans to invest in German businesses. The German economic recovery was based on shaky foundations. The German economy was in decline prior to the Wall Street crash. There was no growth in German industrial production in 1928-29, and unemployment rose to 2.5 million. On the 24th of October, Black Thursday, there was a panic selling on the New York Stock Exchange, reacting to a business crisis in America. Early the following week, Black Tuesday, the 29th of October, panic selling set in again. 16.4 million shares were sold, a record not surpassed for 40 years. Share pieces went into free fall. $10 billion was wiped off the value of share prices in one day. Goes on to the effects on Germany. As a result, American demand for imports collapsed. American banks saw their losses mount, and they started calling in their short-term loans, with which so much of the German economy had been financing itself for the past 5 years. Firms began to cut back drastically. Industrial production fell quickly, and by 1932 it was 40% of its 1929 level. To make matters worse, in 1931, a number of Austrian and German banks went out of business. Unemployment rose from 1.6 million in October 1929 to 6.12 million in February 1932. 33% of the workforce was now unemployed. By 1932, roughly one worker in three was registered as unemployed, with rates even higher in the industrial areas of Germany. Matters were made worse by the fact that the drastic fall in people's income caused a collapse in tax revenues. Many soon were not in receipt of unemployment benefits as state governments could not afford to pay it. Sound familiar?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Sounds very familiar to me. I'll read it again. Matters were made worse by the fact that the drastic fall in people's income caused a collapse in tax revenues. Many soon were not in receipt of unemployment benefits as state governments could not afford to pay it. I think that's exactly what's happening here.
Let me ask you, what do they mean by state governments?
Well, Germany has a series of states like Bavaria and I forget all. There's quite a few of them. I think that's what he's talking about there.
All right, so it wouldn't be unlike. Actually, I mean, it would seem simple, like states in the United States.
Yeah, I think that their form of government is somewhat different, but they do have different states, that make up the overall country.
All right. No, and what's interesting is also, in a time that we have right now, what is being somewhat said, but pretty much hushed or behind a backhand, is that when you have, obviously, a high supply of workers and a lower supply of jobs, then, of course, now the higher is king. And then you can also ask anything you want of people, because if you don't like it, hit the pike. And with that also comes lower wages. So, and this is going to be interesting to see what's going on, because we had a glowing report that came out just today. And what are we talking about? What is today? Today is the 1st of December. Oh, and the Wall Street's going great. Big gains. But, I understand that, and it's true.
Well, I guess they are doing great. At least they are doing great. The rest of the country isn't. But, I mean, considering that they robbed us of trillions of dollars during the bailout, due to their own mismanagement and crooked dealings, I'm sure they are doing fine.
Oh, yeah. But then you get the reports, if true, and this is something that I had said with O'Rourke, and that is, am I to understand, given the data that's been thrown out there back on Monday, that more than half the American people,
Mm-hmm.
If we got 399 million, we're going to use that as a figure. Yep. 222 million people went out and shopped on Black Friday. Really? I mean, I got a hard time believing that. But, and of course, then we had Cyber Monday and whatever, I don't know, what is it, Ash Tuesday? I have no idea what they do with that, you know. But I mean, it's like, oh, it's great. And everybody's spending stuff. And I'm sorry, but in the back of my mind, always is that Carlin bit, you know, buying shit you don't need with money you don't have. And I'm like,
sooner or later, there's going to be a big train crash.
Well, and that's just it. So everybody's going around, happy times are here again. I'm going, are you serious? Foreclosures are up. Okay.
Have you ever noticed, Biz, I know you have, that every year around Christmas, all of a sudden everything looks so rosy?
Yeah.
Oh, get out and spend. Oh, you know, eat, buy, consume. You know, it's such a crop.
Well, remember that Wall Street gets its bonuses based on the end of the year results, which November and December obviously jack up. You know, it's like when people leave, when they're going to leave a certain system, and I hate to say it, but whether it's the, you know, law enforcement, it's all civil servants. When they go to the last time, I mean, they try to get like, you know, to be the principal if they're a vice principal. They try to be a captain if they're a lieutenant, because you get obviously pensioned out on the last office you held.
Rank,
yeah. And even though it isn't indicative of your entire service, you get it based on that, which is one of the reasons why that's coming into an end. But it's the same thing with Wall Street. Whatever happens at the end, they buff it up. I mean, there's a name for it, like the December something or other, where everything gets pumped up. They get their bonuses and stuff, and of course the whole thing collapses anywhere between January and March. When in March, then you start to hear all the stories come out. Well, you people did this, and I mean, oh jeez, what do you expect? I mean, you're going to have the hangover hit.
Yeah.
In the first quarter, at the end of the first quarter of the next year, we've been doing this, and you know that, Larry. We've been doing this forever, and nobody ever
all
watches
my life, you know, from the time I was old enough to even have an understanding of economy at all. It's every year around Christmas, you know, especially the first few days after Thanksgiving. Man, it just goes nuts.
Yeah.
You know, there's a full court press on about eat, buy, consume, you know. And like you said, Carlin's old joke about, you know, buy things that you don't need with money that you don't have. And what was it, 16% interest or whatever it was, you know. And it's like, he's exactly right. I mean, they just keep jacking things. And the American public is so incredibly dumb, or at least a large portion of it is. Or put it this way, Americans have been brainwashed to believe we've got to have all these consumer goods. We've got to have, you know,
well,
we've got to keep up with the Joneses. We've all got to have, you know, and it was just like the thing with the big real estate scam, you know, back in 2008 when everything crashed. It was like, my God, they were giving loans to people and betting these people would not be able to pay them back. They were betting on them to default on these loans. You know, people who had a very low income were getting loans for mortgage loans for houses that were $250,000, $300,000. You know, couldn't possibly afford that kind of house. You know, what's the house note on that? You know, $2,500, $3,000 a month. You know, with somebody whose income you know might be $25,000 a year or something. There's no way.
Yeah. Now, what's interesting though is that this bonanza that we're supposed to believe is occurring is happening at a time when we're not out of anything. I mean, you can say we're not in the deepest nadir. You could say that about what happened, you know, after 07 into 08. But, I mean, we are not out of the woods. And all this rah-rah cheerleading stuff, of course, always occurs if you can propagandize the people that go out and buy, again, as we said with what Carlin said. He goes, you know, it's consumerism. We've been told time and time again, at this point where we're at, we cannot spend ourselves out of a recession.
No.
And it's true. And we are definitely in a recession. The banks might have gotten healthy, but we didn't.
Well, all they did was further monopolize and cartelize. What they did, the big ones gobbled up the little ones. That's all that happened. You know, like Chase Manhattan gobbled up, I'm trying to think of the other horrible bank, Western, I can't remember, but that was just an example.
Westminster?
I mean, yeah. The big banks gobbled up the smaller banks, you know. and they got more powerful, and they're still not lending anybody money, so there's no capital for somebody to do anything.
It's so funny. I know.
And it's like, it's for the greater good. Americans love socialism as long as it's socialism for the rich. In other words, fascism. That's really all. That's what Mussolini used to do. If there were, and Hitler too, if there were businesses, major businesses within the country that were faltering, they would go and take taxpayers' money and bail them out. And of course, the average working man, whenever both Hitler and Mussolini took over, their wages decreased quite a bit. And of course, there were no labor unions, so you couldn't collectively bargain. So what are you going to do? To get a sign?
I know.
And get your head bashed in.
Well, I mean, so here we are in the United States. We are clearly not out of anything. They can come out with a jobs report that I'm sure is going to look a little bit better because even though they don't want to admit it, we got the old seasonal hiring going on. Mm-hmm. You lose it after the summer.
Right.
You have a little bit of a valley, and then, of course, you pick it up in November.
And these are not real jobs.
No,
most of these jobs are, like, people will go in and work in a department store, helping do, wrapping presents or, whatever. They need somebody in the warehouse to help them out, with orders during Christmas time. Those are, real seasonal jobs that don't pay very much anyway. These are not the kind of jobs you can really support a family on.
No, but exactly. So anyway, we're at this point now where everything is groovy, and they brought Kramer out on today's show. Yeah, and it's like it's all good, except he did say, well, we got to look at the jobs report. And then Matt Lyers said, well, okay, that's the next indicator we're going to look at. Look, I'm sorry, I would love for the economy to turn around. I want all this to be good. Don't get me wrong. But the thing is, they've been lying sacks of shit over and over again. I mean, how many times does Charlie Brown have to try to kick the football when Lucy pulls it away? Exactly. I'm not going to try to kick the football. I'll kick Lucy, but I'm not going to kick the football.
Well, I mean, every time I look at these situations going on in American society now, I just wish in my heart of hearts that things were like they were in the Leave It to Beaver world of the 50s and 60s when I grew up, where, Dad went off to work and sometimes Mom worked, but most of the time Mom was a housewife, and they were able to have a pretty decent living, as long as you kept your nose clean and went to work every day and, didn't overspend. Most Americans were fairly affluent, and did pretty well, but that's not coming back.
No.
That's not happening now, and it's not ever going to happen again, because of the whole globalism, and the global economy idea, and it's not working. Free trade has done nothing but completely level the American economy down to basically a third world level as far as the working people.
But that's the intention, to have an equal playing field, which sounds great to everyone. But the thing is, you're all going to live as like dogs. We talked about that.
Right. Here, King.
Yeah, I know. Food fit for a king.
I'm sorry, I got a Henny moment there.
Yeah. For you
I
folks,
got to stop that.
In a rare happy email from Larry, he made a joke. Why didn't you say what that was?
Well,
it was a good one.
We've got a new missile in our arsenal now in the United States. It won't work and you can't fire it. It's called a civil servant.
You get it? You get it?
Pow, pow.
Boom. Yeah.
Need a drum roll. You got to have a rim shot.
Right.
Oh, man, where's Henny when we need him?
He's the best. He's absolutely the best.
Oh, man.
Well, so anyway, everybody's happy now. And again, like I said, I don't want to be such a doubter, but come on, man. And so what are they doing? Are they pumping everything up only to turn around after the year and then all this gloom and doom stuff comes out? And we may not be seeing anything of a really severe nature throughout 2012. Maybe not. But look, we're even talking foolishly about realistic solutions if, in fact, the whole economic malaise, the whole fiasco was orchestrated. Mm-hmm. So how in the world can you sit there and think about real patches and solutions when the whole damn thing was orchestrated to begin with, and I believe
not
it was.
only that, but they have their bought and paid for media. I mean, when corporations control the media, and they definitely do in this country. I mean, just for example, ABC, it is totally corporate owned. The Disney Corporation owns it, and all of them are like that. What is it? NBC is General Electric, and and I guess Rockefeller. But everything is corporate controlled. I mean, we don't have what media do we have in this country that is not corporate controlled? Would generally just be this kind of stuff on the internet. It's the best we could do. With short notice. But it's people. So many Americans they take their cues from mainstream media, and they don't realize that you're not going to get told the truth. You're only going to get a version of what is really happening, which is colored through the eyes of a corporate viewpoint of what they want you to know. And a lot of Americans just don't get it. They don't understand what's going on in their country, and they're being told everything's okay, and they're not going to know it's not okay until, they lose their job and they can't pay their house payment and they can't pay their car payment, and they're on the street and wondering what happened. And I think there's an awful lot of, well-meaning, decent people who just don't get it, and they won't get it until they get slammed upside the head, figuratively.
Yeah. No. This is just
speaking of that, I've got a quote here, not a quote, but just a little more of that article
sure.
by
Go ahead. Yeah.
Stephen Tonge. It was in this economic chaos that the Nazis and the communists thrived. Crime and suicide rates rose sharply, and many lost hope. People deserted the Democratic parties in droves and turned to either the communists or the Nazis. In the election of 1930, the Nazis made their electoral breakthrough, winning 107 deputies, while the communists won 77. Both parties were opposed to the democratic system and used violence against their political opponents. And it goes on to say, Hitler's brown shirts clashed frequently on the streets with their communist enemies. Well, I think we've been talking about that in probably the last two episodes. What I see building as a left-right, now it'll be in an American style as opposed to a European style, and it'll be a different type of right and a different type of left than they had in the 20s and 30s, but I see the Tea Party and the Occupy Wall Street people as being kind of our new right and left, outside the mainstream parties. And I see political violence, coming at some point. I'm not saying anybody's threatening anybody or anything of that nature, but I really see some real hard times coming, and I see, people battling it out in the streets with their political opponents, and of course the cops thrown in there too. And generally all over the world the cops are on the side of the right, so it's just kind of their nature. And I see what's left of the American Republic, which was always something of a sham anyway. Yeah. I see the American Republic turning into a full-blower fascist dictatorship in line with eventually a worldwide totalitarian system.
I mean, I think that's exactly the plan. I mean, what is the problem with that? Yeah, I mean, I don't see any other way around it. What's going to happen perhaps in the next 4 years, not because, I mean, all right, we've emailed and stuff, and we've talked before, and the thing is, you can tell what's going to happen to you in this country by what administrations put in. Mm-hmm. They all, I mean, it's not that Obama really does things, or if a Republican comes in, they'll change. No. They go in there, and they're there to sell the policy change that's already been scripted. Are we okay on that?
Yeah.
Now, I got to say something to you really quick, too, because I find this very interesting. While everybody can't stand Obama and his approval rating is low, I mean, I look at that stuff and I laugh. It's like, excuse me, I have to go to the bathroom. Yeah. Don't bother me with this. I have to laugh because Newt Gingrich, who mysteriously didn't really go into his campaign I mean, very aggressively. I mean, I remember when Chuck Todd, the guy that has taken the place of Tim Russert on NBC, was talking about how strange it was that when Newt's supposed to come out with his campaign, he and his wife, I mean, that is the worst helmet hair I've seen since, I mean, come on, honey. I mean.
Oh, which one of his wives was it this time? I kind of lose track.
No, this last one, it's like, come on, lay off the hairspray, will you? It's bad for the environment. I mean, oh, God, anyway. So anyway, he goes off on a cruise with helmet hair, and, you know, people resign from his campaign. Chuck Todd comes out and goes, this is so strange. So here we are now, a couple of months later, and he's in a front runner. You know, here's where I'm going with this. This is so sickening. He doesn't care because he knows what the deal is.
Yeah.
I mean, he could have sat there in a Chase Lounge somewhere in Bimini, and it wouldn't have mattered. I mean, he didn't do anything. He got excoriated for it. People, shrugged their shoulders, scratched their head. He had campaigners leave, and here he's at the top of the heap. Why? Because it's all baloney. Mm-hmm. So he didn't care. And he's so old now, he doesn't give a crap. I mean, he just walked in, farted, and I'll be back in a couple of weeks. But you know what I'm saying? I mean, you look at him.
I do. When I watch these people, and I'm not a Democrat by any means, but when I watch the Republicans, it's like it's almost like I'm watching a clown show, a political clown show. That doesn't quite get what I'm saying. It's so bizarre. Watching these people and the things they say and do, and the way they try to one up each other, and their their little slogans and scripts and everything. You got the black guy Kane over there. He's grabbing
white women.
He's grabbing the rear ends of every shapely butt he sees, and going on and on about some crap that I don't even it doesn't make any sense.
He's a mess.
He's a joke. And then you got Michelle Bachmann. Good grief, what a bimbo. What a fool. And
love them corn dogs.
Oh, my God. And our esteemed Governor Rick, drumroll please, Good Hair Perry, who can't even remember his script. I mean, his memory's going on him, just like mine. I mean, I think he's about my age.
But does he have the George Bush, disease?
Yeah, I think so.
Where they get water-headed.
Foot and mouth.
Oh, jeez. I'm just waiting for someone to ask him to recite the capitals of the states. I don't think we'd be maybe after 5 it would be over.
You know what I always hope is that I hope the people in Europe aren't watching because I'm really embarrassed.
Of course they're watching. They're watching, and they're
I know they are. That's the thing that's bothering me.
They're on their backs, kicking their legs up in the air.
Don't watch this, okay? This is not really what America's all about. Right. We're really not all like that.
I mean, they got to be saying, look at these assholes.
Oh, my God.
Oh, it's an embarrassing. But, I mean, the thing is that if Obama gets in, it's only because everyone that they pull out of the Republican Party is such a nimrod.
Oh.
That, he's going to get it by default. But the thing also that
whoever's in the script, however they want to run it,
Lord.
I haven't figured it out yet. I really don't know who they're gonna pick. I don't know if we're going to have 4 more years of Obama so that they can have, the beginning of the Third World War, because the script has always been for a Democrat to be in there when they want a war, and then when they want to deregulate the banking system and go and steal all your money, then they put in the Republicans.
Well, if we go back to the scenarios, Wilson was a 2-term president. Roosevelt was a 4-term president.
Yeah.
And now why wouldn't he be put in there to do what they have to do? My only point is that if they throw a Republican administration, in which I think would be hard to do, because there's no jobs to be had, there's not going to be any of this stuff.
Yeah.
And also, it's a sinking ship, and I can't believe that they're going to throw a Republican administration in there to forestall what? I don't know. Maybe they will. The other thing is this. What they got out there right now it's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. The only thing that would change the situation, and that would change, of course, what's going to happen to us per who they put in, and that is if they grab Jeb. Who else could they grab?
Man,
just about Jeb. If they grab Jeb and throw him in, he could win without a campaign. But I don't think that's going to happen. And who?
Well, I'll tell you what. It's like it is really the lesser of two evils. Whoever the two parties run. I mean, but in this case, it won't be the lesser. It's just going to be two evils. You know, if you want to go vote, then you can vote for, you know, the scumbag of, you know, the Democrats run or the scumbag on the other side. But nobody's going to win. There's not anybody. I mean, there probably were. I mean, I can think back in my lifetime. The only president in my lifetime, well, there were two that I liked, and I've one was Dwight Eisenhower, and I've learned to not have so much respect for him as I've gotten older and have studied him and his presidency and the history of, you know, what he did. I'm not as favorable toward him as I was when I was a younger person. And the other would be John Kennedy. And John Kennedy, I didn't really respect his personal life so much, but as far as his attitude about what he wanted to do as a president, as I've studied it, he was a much better president and a much stronger man, you know, a much more, a man who really believed in America and the promise of America and really wanted to change things for the better. I really believe that. I hope I don't sound corny here.
No, but that's why he was killed.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, he had to go.
What are you, nuts?
He was going to get rid of the Federal Reserve. He was going to get rid of the CIA. He was going to stop the war in Vietnam before it really got started. I mean, I could go on and on and on. He and his brother were conducting a campaign against organized crime. On and on and on. The things that really needed to be done, the things that should be done. You know, he was attempting to make some kind of a détente between ourselves and the Soviet Union, so we didn't go overboard and get into a nuclear war. I mean, there were all these things he was doing, and he was a very far-sighted, decent guy with a lot of courage. But the problem was that he didn't realize that. Or if he did realize, he just kind of tried to ignore it, that, you know, the president is very vulnerable, and the president really doesn't run this country. This country is run by an oligarchy, and you know, for lack of a better term, that's the only term I can come up with, and Wall Street and the corporations really have a say as to what happens.
I want to put in this perspective, too. I mean, we might like Lincoln, we might like Kennedy, mm-hmm. We might want to put them all in the same sentence, but let's be brutally honest. Mm-hmm. These gentlemen knew when they took the office exactly what was going to be. I mean, let's remember that they had no misgivings or I guess. All right, I got to hold this. I got to think for a second. I'll take this out. Let me take a look. 43. Okay. No, I'm having a brain fog. Okay. I don't think they had any kind of delusions or illusions of what is and what can be. They all were Turks. They understood the territory when they came in. I don't look at them as being, above it all, except for one thing, and that is they may have had conscience enough to change their minds, and you do not do that.
Yeah, exactly. You don't go against the predetermined plan of those who really run the show, and if you do, and John Kennedy found that out, yeah, you pay for it with your life.
But now here's another thing, and it may be because of a certain dire situation and because of the power of the National Socialists. But as you were talking about Weimar and its lead-in, and we may not even be there yet. We might, in a sense. I don't know if it'll take as long in the United States as it did in Weimar Republic. I mean, inflation is going to happen. We had these discussions that you might remember or not, but I mean, with Robert Burke and Freak Lemon and Trudeau talking about whether or not we're going to be hit by deflation or hyperinflation. Burke always said, no, I think we're going to go into deflation, which would be good for all of us for a sense, but I never thought that would really fly.
I don't think that'll happen, but
no, we're not.
I'm not an economist.
But we're not seeing that. I mean,
I don't have that, any kind of crystal ball either. But I see hyperinflation. I mean,
Well, that's always been the case. I mean, that really is always it's been. And what's worse now is the fact that, and this is why I think all this propaganda about people going out and buying is a move to keep prices up while people are losing their jobs or coming into the workplace with employers definitely slashing the incoming salary. Mm-hmm. So here you have the diverse or the, diametrically opposed ratio where you have prices going up and salaries going down. Mm-hmm. And I think, and that's why I don't know if this Christmas thing will hold through the next year, but it looks like at least it's got a good start. But going back to Weimar Germany, I mean, and tell me, I mean, Hitler came to power because there was something that resonated with the people, what he was saying. Was it economically based, or did it deal with this bit about our ass has been kicked for so long, it's time to go back and smack everybody who...
Well, it was a combination of things. One, it was economically based. People, when people are out of work and they're hungry, and there were literally people starving to death in Germany, they're going to listen to anything that sounds better. It gives them a bit of hope. Hitler also gave them a scapegoat for their problems. He blamed all the problems that the Weimar Republic had upon being stabbed in the back by the Jews and the politicians in the era right after the First World War during the Versailles Treaty. And, of course, the reparations and all the harsh punishment on Germany came from that. He was blaming all that on being stabbed in the back. Actually, Germany was beaten on the battlefield, but they were saying, oh, no, the politicians, called it all off, and they stabbed us in the back. And then, of course, they went into all the Aryan racial theories, and they constantly pounded the public with anti-Semitic literature and gave them a scapegoat, gave them an object of hate, and it worked. A lot of people, the Jews, the Jewish bankers, blah, blah, on and on. And, people already were prejudiced against them, or many people were. That's just the fact of life in Europe, not just Europe, but probably all over the world, or in many countries of the world.
You might have addressed this, but just real quickly, was there a component there that dealt with any kind of illegal immigration, which I kind of don't think happened? I think that's a new tool now, but
I don't
maybe
think there were really very many people trying to get into Germany because the economy was so bad they couldn't make it. There were people trying to get out of Germany and to immigrate to the United States and other parts of Europe and South America, for that matter. I don't think that was really... They had their own intrinsic ethnic hatred, with the Jews. Whereas in the United States, I mean, this country is so mixed, obviously the whites and blacks, and, different races here, could all point at the other guy, but there they really concentrated, and the Nazis preached it so much to them and believed it that the people were willing to believe that the Jews were, the main fault for their downfall.
Right. No, I'm just trying to think about it. I mean, there may be parallels. Not everything may be a parallel.
Yeah.
I think that the triggering elements will always be the same. They may not be dressed as the same. Mm-hmm. With us, it could be the fact that there's not going to be this thing about Jews, although that there's a really heavy-duty anti-Semitic sentiment going through this country. Mm-hmm. But I mean, still in all, what I think replaces that is the illegal immigration that we've had, this whole issue.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's the big one now. The Tea Party is pumping on that one hard, and they also throw in the Muslims, and they're going to bring Sharia law,
Yeah, we hear that every 3 months. I mean, stop with that. What a
that's a big one for them. And I mean, there is a threat from radical Islam. I'm not discounting that, but I mean, a lot of this stuff is nothing more than scapegoating and raising tension and raising hatred and giving people an object for their hate. What was the thing Orwell's 10 minutes of hate, or what? I can't remember.
It was the 2-minute hate or something like that.
2-minute hate.
Yeah.
And of course, the one thing the Nazis were really good at was terrorism, domestic terrorism. and they would blame, obviously, the Reichstag fire was their piece de resistance. You know, if I could speak French, I would
don't
do it,
do
but
that.
I can't.
And after a restaurant, don't try.
I always
anything
sound
else.
bad. Yeah, you know, you go in a restaurant and the guy looks at you like.
Well, even the word restaurant, just hold your nose and say whatever you have to say. It'll sound French.
Yeah, well, wear a beret, you know.
There you go.
Yeah. And then when I open up and start talking with a Texas accent, they...
No.
Just not going for it.
No, it won't.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
I don't know, but I don't like snails anyway, you know.
So, we like escargot. Yeah,
Excuse me, escargot. Where were we before I got distracted?
That's your fault, not mine. This one I did not...
Hey, you know what? I remember the name of the guy who wrote the book that we were talking about last week. Dorothy Thompson's husband was Sinclair Lewis.
All right, there you go. Okay.
Man, I tell you, I agonized over that one. I was very embarrassed, you know.
Yeah, it showed. Yeah, it really did show. Right.
Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah. I can see you just barely hanging on to your mental.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of shattered my whole self-image. Not to mention a couple of glasses on there. But
going back. Well, go ahead. If you got it, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You were asking a question.
Are we going to fight about this? Are we having a fight? No, okay. My point was just the whole financial situation. I don't know if.
Oh yeah, I'll read you something that was in that book.
Yeah, get it
by
out.
Dark Valley by Piers Brendan, which is some of Hitler's own words. It was a time ripe for Adolf Hitler, who intuitively grasped the fact that social chaos caused by the Mark's precipitous fall was the humus of Nazism. Hitler liked to tell the story of the, quote, old woman who had rejoiced when her small postcard shop did well during the Munich Gymnastic Festival. And here's Hitler's words. But now the old woman is sitting in front of an empty shop, crying her eyes out, for with the miserable paper money she took in for her cards, she can't buy 1/100th of her old stock. Her business is ruined. Her livelihood is absolutely destroyed. She can go begging. And the same despair is seizing a whole people. We are facing a revolution. And, of course, Hitler would rile the crowds. He said, by saying revolution would come when, quote, when the farmer stopped selling food for currency, good for only papering his outhouse on the manure heap. And so, yeah, the Nazis were definitely exacerbating that situation. I was going to say that their big moment came when they really were able to take over the country, when they did sort of their equivalent of 9/11, which was the Reichstag fire. They found a retarded guy, Vanderloob, who was a foreigner to start with. He was Dutch. He was not German. And the guy was mentally retarded. He was I believe a bricklayer or something. I can't remember. But they used him as a scapegoat. They went and they set the fire in the Reichstag because they had a secret entrance to it. And they went in, and then they blamed it on the communist. And they called, they said, this is communist terrorism, because Vanderloob had gone to a Communist Party meeting at some point and signed up to become a member of the party. And he'd never become a member of the party because he basically wasn't probably not able to read very well. They weren't particularly interested in having him. But, it was good enough. They could say he was, a communist terrorist. And if you think about it, it's the same technique now, 9/11, false flag attack. And once they blamed that on their enemies among the communists and the leftists in general, they were able to go through and pick them up, and eventually most of them wound up dead or in concentration camps. And they eventually eliminated the left for all intents and purposes in Nazi Germany.
Well, looking back again at the parallels, so I'm saying to myself, okay, what do we have here that's the equivalent? Not that we have to liken everything that takes place as what happened there, but there are certain key points. And again, like I go back to what Peikoff was saying, it is also a mindset of a country that does a lot for it. I mean, he looked at philosophy, which I think a lot of people thought, well, who cares what philosophers you listen to, but or read? But that's not the point. The point is what they were driving through as some kind of credo for a nation to live by, that meant everything. And there was something that the Germans embraced, I think pretty much out of bitterness. And I just want to say one thing to you also. In a telling conversation, which, I may have shared with you, I don't know, back in around 81, when myself and a friend went down to McSorley's in South Manhattan, in the shadow of, what was that? Oh, man, I always think of that Roosevelt Square. Do I have that right?
Got me.
I know, and I always think of it, and I always forget what it's called. Washington Square, Washington Square. And have a little Triumph d'Arc down there. But anyway...
the president, anyway, you were close.
Yeah.
You were in the ballpark.
Yeah, I was one of those guys. That shows you how much I went down there.
One of those guys in Washington in the White House.
Yeah. It was on 7th Street, rather. And a lot of NYU students came in there.
I've heard of Washington Avenue. Is it Washington Avenue or Street?
Where?
I've heard of it. I mean, it's like a famous street there in Manhattan, right?
I have no idea what you're talking
about. Washington Square, I mean.
It was Washington Square. That's it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's like a famous area there, right?
Yeah, I mean, in movies it's always...
It's like a bohemian type hangout type thing, or...
Yes, the old men play chess. Right, and you have mimes down there, and it's a groovy place to be.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's it.
Yeah.
So here we are in McSorley's.
There's not a lot of demand for mimes anymore, I guess.
Why are you doing this to me? Why are you doing this to me? I mean...
I don't know, Biz. Go ahead, man.
No, you know what you do know.
Just having some fun.
Yeah.
Go ahead. It's a great story. Go ahead.
I'm so hurt. All right, yeah. But I mean, these two German guys are in there, and they're trying to give us the business, And I mean, they both look like Ian Anderson from Jethro Tull,
Yeah.
And they were talking about what was going back on in Germany with the slam dancing and all this stuff, and they were saying how crazy it is. But they were trying to goad us about what's going on in America, and of course, the one thing they said is, and I have to laugh because actually, both my friend and myself looked at them when they said this, and they thought that we were going to come across the table and belt them, but we're like, no, that's exactly right, because they said everything in America is how much. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, and that's when we looked at each other going, yeah, that's pretty much where it's at. But they were talking about...
Well, when you're right, you're right.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess they expect us to okay.
Well, are they trying to start a fight or just see if they could get a rise out of you?
Well, first of all, by the looks of them, it would have been a bad idea.
Yeah.
They definitely would have come in a distant second. But, but that's the German in them,
Yeah.
But what they were saying was that there was this rising nihilism, I guess. I mean, I can't,
Yeah, that's the word that came to mind when you started talking about it.
Yeah.
Is nihilism. Had a friend who used to be in the music business. I have a couple of friends, but one of them was manager for a club here in Austin that they did different styles of music, but sometimes they would have punk groups in there. And I would never go when they had that kind of night. And he was talking about the whole slam dancing thing and how stupid it all was.
That's
these
exactly
kids
what
would all
they were
just
talking
get in there
about.
and just start taking each other out in a mosh pit. Just blasting each other. And trying to knock somebody's head, even knocking girls down and all this. And I'm thinking, I think I did this, but it was in junior high on the football team.
And you didn't have alcohol to blame.
Yeah, no alcohol. We just went after each other, It's one of those deals. But yeah, it's indicative of hopelessness and kind of a despair and anger and really ugly.
But remember this. I mean, these guys apparently now this is 81, and they're obviously from West Germany.
Yeah.
So the unification wasn't actually in sight at that time, and so he's complaining about things on the west side of the wall, and not even thinking about it. They think things should be even more hopeless. They should be on the east side of the wall. But that's what he said, that there was a sentiment, and I think that was pretty much through Europe too, to a certain extent. But again, it's a country that are we going to say? I mean, and does this exist right now? I mean, you've seen Charles Wilcox's emails. We thought about this stuff. I mean, could it possibly be that Germany's being worked up for we're still pissed off after World War II, and we're going to do something about it?
We've been talking about, and I've been showing you evidence of it. from many different works that the Nazi Party never went down. It's still around, and it's gone through 2 more generations still. And it's Germany's definitely starting to rise in Europe, and there's going to be within the European Union a German-dominated nation state. There won't be any more national sovereignty as we know it now, but you're going to have a Holy Roman Empire, just as you actually did with Hitler and Mussolini, an attempt for another Holy Roman Empire. And we've been talking about that quite a bit. And yes, I definitely see that coming. And signs are all around us that we're headed for a one world government with a totalitarian one world government. And that's very simplistic, but we've been trying to flesh that out now for quite a while, and I think we've done a pretty good job of it.
Yeah, as you're talking, I'm just thinking again, that's a dangerous thing, but the way things are shaping up, going back with what you've done and such, I guess the point is, like, we're not trying to promote a fight or look for a fight, but I don't see how in the world we can escape a third major conflagration, and I would think would be the last. Now, how does Germany play into this? Now, you've seen information come down a pike, and Kathleen from KD Pearl Ministries has written me a couple of times, and by the way, she's going to be over in Europe and such, I believe, early next year.
I would love to hear Kathleen's impressions of what's going on over there. An American touring that, and an American who's a fundamentalist Christian. I guess I could say that about her. I know she's...
Oh, no, without a doubt. But the thing is, she's probably not going to mention that for the places she's going, one of which is Rome.
No.
So,
but I mean, Kathleen's a very, very intelligent, well-read, and very
dedicated,
savvy.
Yeah.
I mean, she's smart. I mean, I really like her. I really enjoyed. She has a good spirit, and she's trying to do what she thinks is right. And I think that she would be a great person to talk to, about her impressions of all that. And we'll see, maybe we can get her impressions of how far along that Holy Roman Empire is going, how it's coming along.
I think that was her intent, too, because she said she was pretty able to go over there and send stuff back.
Right. That'd be great, man.
Yeah, it would be. So, Kathleen, I've not written you back, but if you're listening, and I know you are, that would definitely be invaluable.
That was really enjoyable. I really liked that. When we've had third parties on, like Andy and Kathleen, it really helps. To get that other perspective.
Yeah. From definitely different polarities, but nevertheless dedicated. Yeah. And,
we need to hear all these viewpoints.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that, Larry.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I can't think of any internet show that's about politics, and this one is not always about. It's often about cultural things too, such as your Sherlock Holmes show today that I listened to with
Eric the Blacksmith.
Eric the Blacksmith, yeah, that was a good show. I really enjoyed it. I've got a bunch of those old Sherlock Holmes movies on DVD.
Well,
and I love those. Basil Rathbone was one of my favorites. He was also a great villain
he was
in all those,
the Robin
like in
Hood
Robin Hood
with
Daryl Flynn. Oh
him.
man, he's a nasty dude.
No, he's a great actor.
Sarcastic and good with a sword.
But here's an example of somebody who just has spent a lot of time in a certain kind of endeavor and wanted to share it. He also has reprised some of the anti-federalist papers, which are up there also, showing that not everybody in the new founded country was really cool with what was going on in the Constitution, which of course does not get put through your history textbooks. But the thing with Eric and such is that this is something he's loved for a long, long time, and he's just trying to wade through it. And that was his first audio, and he's going to come on again this weekend.
Well, it's going to make, I believe, for a really good series. You know, I enjoyed listening to it today.
Well, you know,
he had a lot of little tidbits of information, you know, that obviously he's gleaned from his reading, you know, and studying the subject because he really seems to love Holmes and the whole Arthur Conan Doyle.
Well, you could hear he was waist deep in his notes. I mean, so.
I mean, we blast the Brits a lot on this show, but you know, I gotta admit it down deep in my heart, I love British literature. I really do. You know, I mean, maybe it's because you know it's my roots, which are partially English and the rest Irish. But
hey,
you know,
that's like saying.
But I really enjoy like Shakespeare and you know the Holmes series and all. I love you know the whole King Arthur legend, all that stuff. It's great stuff. Anyway.
That's like saying you like the French because you like French fries. Stop. Will you making me ill here? I will say
I'm
this.
just saying, you know.
Hey, look, but I mean, truthfully, from the time I was in junior high, and I started to watch like you know some of the Basil Rathbone, Sherlock Holmes things.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, and I'm going to say you're going to say, I don't know. Does anybody not like the Sherlock Holmes movies? No.
No, I've never met anybody. Well, maybe ladies don't like it. I don't know. Guys like the Sherlock Holmes story. It's kind of like when it comes to humor, there's certain types of humor that women just do not like, and do not show a lady a Three Stooges movie and think she's going to laugh. They don't see the humor in that.
Oh, you do? You
I love the Three
Stooges. You callow thing.
You know, beat 'em, cheat 'em, and how.
I have to laugh.
I love it when Curly gets slapped up. You know, it's great stuff. You know, but women just, you know, it's too sophomoric for them. You know, it's too silly, I guess.
As we take a break from the serious stuff here at the top of the hour, let me. I don't know what grade I was in, but I was like in second or third. I'm in the boys' room.
Yeah.
And we're all, you know, draining a lizard, and I heard these two guys talking.
Draining a lizard. Now, what kind of talk is that?
I think it's Texan. Didn't they say that? They said that in Lonesome Dove.
That'd be more like draining your radiator, would you say?
Something like that.
There are many of those.
Watering the horses.
That's colorful language.
It certainly is, without being absolutely obscene.
Yeah.
However,
it's a bit vulgar, but what the heck, you know?
Listeners, you can see that Larry is definitely trying to subvert me here. And I'm going to chalk it up to the season.
I'm really not. I'm really a very shy and retiring kind of guy.
Oh, really? Really? Can I go back to my second grade experience in the bathroom? And these two guys are talking about how their teacher was telling them, don't watch the Three Stooges. Mm-hmm. I did not know they existed. For whatever reason, I mean, I just didn't know they were there. But because I heard that, as children will do, I went looking for the Three Stooges.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I mean, come on. Even in second and third grade, you're looking at this going, okay, look, I mean, we know this isn't real. What's the problem here, you know? Tell a kid you can't watch it.
It was just silly humor, and to me, they were masterful at it. You know, it just made me laugh. They're so dumb that you had to laugh, you know, with just slapstick stuff. And gosh, it was pretty harmless, I thought.
Have you listened to Adam Sandler's Hanukkah song?
What's that now?
I can't even get it out of my throat. Adam Sandler's Hanukkah song?
Oh, yeah.
Right. The Three Stooges were all Jews. The Fine Brothers, absolutely. So anyway, but in seriousness, Kathleen's going to go over to Europe, and I'd like to take her up on her offer if she wants to send some stuff back live or whatever.
Man.
That would be good. And also, we pray for her because she's also thinking, if she can, to get into Pakistan. Whoa.
Ooh.
This is that's probably something she may not want to get into.
That's all I can say. May God protect her.
Yeah.
Because that's really dangerous. But if that's where she thinks the Lord's leading her, well, you know, He will protect her.
You're absolutely right.
I'm getting awful serious here, but that.
I know.
Wow, when you said that, I was like, whoa.
And that's.
So much for the Three Stooges.
I wrote it back and going, you know, to a certain extent, I hope they don't let you in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For what's going to take place.
I worry about her.
And another thing also, and we'll move on, but there's something that ties in with this Pakistan thing and this Afghanistan thing and Sherlock Holmes because Eric wants to go back to the beginnings of how the history of Holmes and Watson began. and how it involves Britain's intrigues with Afghanistan. And here we are to this very day. The Brits were involved there for some strange reason. The Russians did not do well back in the 80s. And here we are also. And, nothing against the Afghani people, but the thing is, why in the world would anybody in the West want to screw around with Afghanistan? It's forbidding. The people are tough people. In fact, they have more guns than they have teeth.
Yeah.
And
well, the thing that gets me is my dad was talking about this several years back, right after 9/11, when the United States was going to go into Afghanistan, purportedly to roust, Al-Qaeda, blah, blah, blah. But my dad said, that's a really crazy idea. He said, didn't they see what happened to the Russians? And then he was going, well, look down through history. He said they threw the British out. They cost the British a lot of lives and a lot of money. And he said that even before that, Alexander the Great had a hard time in Afghanistan, just talking about history in general. And I don't know who made the statement. Some famous person made the statement. It's where the empires go to die. It's like famous empires down through world history have gone in there and haven't come out looking so good. And there's just something. Those are fierce people. They're primitive to some extent as far as technology and all that, but they are fierce people there, and they know how to fight in that terrain. And if they get the right weapons, which they did get from the United States, they gave the Russians everything they could handle and more than any other factor brought down the Soviet Empire.
Well, I wouldn't go as far as saying broke down the Soviet Empire, but I mean they didn't really do well there.
Did a lot of damage.
But the thing is like, why would anybody want to go there? And excuse me, and I'm not saying anything against Afghanis, but why would two Western empires and one European or Eurasian want to go in there? And the only thing I can think of is that it's about the poppies.
It's exactly it. There are two things: oil and drugs.
Yeah.
In particular, opium. I'm sure the British were there, like he was saying. I'm sure the British were there for opium because it's a perfect medium there. The terrain is perfect for growing opium. And the thing that got me was, they really gave the Taliban hell about everything they had done. And, of course, I don't think the Taliban are such nice people, but they did cut down on the growth of opium there. They had cut it down quite a bit. And as soon as the United States goes in there, and of course we were going to stop all that, well, now they're raising bumper crops of opium poppies in Afghanistan. And heroin is more prevalent or more plentiful now than it ever has been in history due to so much opium being grown there. So how is that being done, and who's doing that, and why is it our efforts, our great extended efforts to stop all that have come to naught? I just wonder.
Well, I mean, that was the story for a while, and that was that the Taliban was demonized because if they were religious zealots, of course, drugs were off the table. Mm-hmm. And if that was the case, and that they came in and they clamped on it, well, of course, they have to go. So you demonize the Taliban, who were anti-drugs, And then this is a chapter we've long forgotten about, the Northern Alliance, if you remember that group.
Yeah.
And it's all disappeared in time. So,
they were being hailed as such great patriots, and, they were going to help us against the Taliban. And really, when you get into it, the Northern Alliance were nothing but basically the Afghani form of the mafia. They were basically the drug lords, and of course, we were aligning ourselves with them. Of course, that's nothing new in history. If you study the history of drugs and the United States government's involvement with drug gangs, etc., it's pretty sordid.
In fact, I would mention once again a book that I thought was extremely compelling and understated, given all that was being said by a certain individual, and that is Drug Politics by I believe it's David C. Jordan, who was an ambassador of the United States. I believe he was in Peru. And, I mean, his memoirs, in a sense, of his time in South America, and his coining the word narco-statistician of economies, I mean, it's so valid. I mean, to me, it's a book that nobody really paid attention to, and I was like, whoa, you got to read this stuff.
I've read quite a bit of information that basically says that the United States economy, especially the big banks, are basically underwritten by drug money. That if it wasn't for drug money, some of those banks would have gone down a lot sooner than they did. And that they are laundering the drug money. And I'm talking about the big ones like Chase Manhattan and Bank of America, et cetera, et cetera. And all of this information seems to seep out, but it never seems to get to the mainstream. The mainstream media never seems to ever get wind of all that. And I wonder how that happens. All these things are being done. These just blockbuster stories are out there, and the only people that ever seem to be able to get that story out are people writing their own individual books that never get reviewed and never really
get bestseller status.
Yeah, I mean the New York Times and and the Washington Post and the L.A. Times don't go out of their way to publish to do interviews with these people or review these books.
In fact,
it just kind of
when that book came into St. Leo's library.
Yeah.
And passed without, the librarians would think, well, somebody ordered the book, so it got in there. Mm-hmm. I don't know who did it, whether it was a professor or whatever. And I'm looking at this, and I'm freaking. I'm like, holy mackerel, look at this. And I was in cataloging at that time, and my supervisor, just a great person. And, after hours or whatever, we were sitting there talking. I'm going, do you know what this says? Do you understand what's going on here? And she was, in a sense, as a lot of people are in academia, a little sheltered from this all. I'm going, no, drugs makes the world go round. We've heard all kinds of things about, in in God we trust, gold, oil, and drugs.
Right.
But, for this, and what cracked me up was, this guy wrote it as alarming as what he was saying, in a matter-of-fact way, as if you were saying to the reader, and I think that's exactly what happened. Hey, this is what's going on. This is the way the world goes round. Don't get upset with me. This is what happens.
Well, I'm glad we kind of got on this subject because I had meant to talk about Peter Lebenda's book, Unholy Alliance, and about that subject of the Nazis being involved with drugs in South America. And in there, he says, as they filtered into South America, the escaping Nazi refugees brought with them their old brotherhood, their talent for organization, and all their old loyalties. They had also become a criminal organization, one that was, at least on paper, being hunted down by the nations of the world. Branded as international criminals, it was no great moral leap for them from the name to the game. They became involved in a drug trade, arms dealing, and international terrorism. The unholy alliance between Nazi war criminal Klaus Barbie and fascist Italian terrorist Stefano del Calle in Bolivia is just one example among many. Unlike other patriotic organizations that forced underground became criminal societies, the Sicilian Mafia and the Chinese Tong come readily to mind, the Nazis did not abandon their core beliefs. They retained their religion of anti-Semitism and Teutonic superiority, and the rest of the world continued to identify Nazis this way. In Argentina, they began to reissue their primary tracts. Everything from Mein Kampf to the Protocols of the Elders of Zion was republished in Spanish versions for the edification of the masses. Moreover, such men as Winifred von Owen, a senior aide to the propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels, would retire peacefully to Buenos Aires to write his neo-Nazi tracts for publication in Europe. The Nazis came to realize that not all South Americans were subhuman. Many were the children of German, Swiss, and Italian immigrants who had come to South America over 100 years ago during various migrations, just as they had to the United States. Although they were now the Spanish-speaking citizens of Colombia, Bolivia, Argentina, Chile, Uruguay, and Paraguay, for instance, their blood was still racially pure. For those who find this odd, it should be recognized that in Latin America generally, and in Argentina, Bolivia, and Chile in particular, there is no element of the population that there is an element of the population that still considers itself European, as distinct from the local Indian people. Europe is worshipped from afar as the natural homeland of these second, third, and fourth generation Italians, Germans, and other European fashion literature, music, and cuisine are preserved, as if in a time capsule. In major cities like Buenos Aires, in Argentina, and Bolivia, the German population forms the cultural and economic elite of La Paz, and in Chile, there is an entire region of the country centered in Valdivia, where the local newspaper and even the street signs are in German, and where during the war the Nazi Party was firmly entrenched. It goes on to talk about the rat lines, which we talked about before, but go into a little more. An undeclared war is being waged in Latin America today against the democratic institutions and the independence of the New World Republic. This war is conducted with fearful efficiency by the soldiers of the Third German Empire, who have been distributed by thousands throughout the political underground of this continent. They are the agents of Adolf Hitler. That was written by Hugo Fernandez Artucio. He wrote that in 1942. He was I believe, a journalist there in Argentina. Beginning in the 1930s, this is Lavinda again. Beginning in the 1930s, there were waves of German immigration coming to the continent. At first, these were German Jews fleeing the newly established Aryan state. Then Nazi diplomats began replacing their Weimar counterparts in embassies from Bogota to Buenos Aires and forming relationships with local Nazi parties in these countries. Of all the South American nations, those most likely to welcome Nazi influence were Argentina, Chile, Ecuador, and Bolivia. All of these countries had high concentrations of German-speaking people in influential areas of government and commerce. Bolivia, for example, had a relatively open immigration policy, and visas could simply be purchased. The Bolivian airline, LAB, was owned and operated by Germans, a situation that Allen Dulles would fight hard to change as it posed a strategic threat to U.S. interests. Of course, Ernst Röhm had worked in Bolivia in the 1920s as a military advisor. Bolivia also had, and probably still has, a homegrown National Socialist Party, the organization National Socialista Americana, American National Socialist Organization, or ONSA. Chile, by comparison, had no less than 3 Nazi parties when the war broke out, plus was host to an exiled Bolivian Nazi party. This is one of the reasons why Chile remained the only country in South America that did not declare war on Germany. One of these parties, the National Socialist Movement, founded by Jorge González Bonmaris in 1932, was an attempt to build Nazism with Chilean characteristics, to paraphrase an old Mao slogan. The members of this party were actually referred to as Nazis, but by 1937 the movement became disaffected with Hitler, and although still remaining basically anti-Semitic and nationalistic, it severed its relations with other Nazi and fascist organizations in Chile. But by far the most blatantly pro-Nazi and pro-fascist government in South America was that of Argentina's Juan Perón. A critical link to the Nazi rat line, Perón's government bent over backwards to accommodate fleeing Nazis, and as recent revelations have shown, more than 1,000 such war criminals managed to find safe haven in Perón's Argentina. Many who write on the Nazi scene in South America have disparaged the movement. They claim that Nazism could never gain a real foothold in South America because the history and culture of that society is so different from that of Germany or Italy. For one thing, because the population is so diverse, a racial program could never succeed. For another, long exposure to North American forms of democracy would mitigate against the creation of a purely nationalistic political force. Unfortunately, this perception of South American politics is only partially correct. It is true that the population of many Latin countries are racially diverse. That does not stop those of white skin from looking down on those with dark skin. It also does not stop those of largely European ancestry from discriminating against those of Native American blood. South America is as class-conscious as any other region, at times even more so. As for North American democracy, the people of Latin America know too well how it has been used against them. The overthrow of Salvador Allende in 1973 was only one example. One could cite Guatemala, Nicaragua, the Dominican Republic, and El Salvador as others, not to mention the repeated attempts to assassinate or overthrow Fidel Castro of Cuba. Thus, Nazi sensibilities became popular among the vested interest in Bolivia, Argentina, Chile, and Ecuador, and virtually everywhere in South America that boasted an elite ruling class that was almost invariably white and non-Indian. While it was difficult in some countries to organize an anti-Semitic party due to the tiny and relatively uninfluential Jewish population there, the emphasis was switched to anti-communism. And as communism began to organize among the lowly and dispossessed, usually Native American people of Bolivia, Chile, Argentina, and the rest of South America, anti-communism took on some racial characteristics. For these reasons, the Nazi Party remains as antagonistic as ever to Christianity, while some Christian prelates may see in the Nazi Party a useful bulwark against the evil communism. By far the most popular priests and bishops in Latin America are the anti-government preachers and martyrs. And then, of course, there is the drug trade. Nazis and their sympathizers are rarely boring. At the very least, they are revolting and perhaps even ridiculous. At best, they are surreal. One such case is that of Carlos Later Rivas, a former kingpin of the Medellin drug cartel of Colombia, neo-Nazi, multimillionaire drug lord, convicted felon, prosecution witness against former Panamanian president and Santeria practitioner Manuel Noriega. In any event, Later's many speeches to the press and to crowds of curiosity seekers in his hometown of Armenia consistently invoked this theme of Nazism and the drug trade, equating cocaine with the atomic bomb, the secret weapon of the Nazis in their ongoing struggle against capitalism and American imperialism. Most DEA agents regarded these speeches as a raving of a coked-up narco traficante. But then there was that little matter of a military coup in Bolivia, a coup masterminded by drug runner and former Gestapo chief Klaus Barbie, with the assistance of a secret Masonic organization based in Italy. Barbie, like so many other rabid Nazis, had been a devout Catholic in his youth, joining several Catholic youth groups in and around his childhood home of Trier. Hitler had offered to compromise with the church, calling it an essential part of the German heritage. While previously the church was certain that it would suffer severely under the Third Reich because of the latter's aggressive neo-paganism, this new attitude was welcomed with relief, and many clergymen jumped on the bandwagon. This might have been the reason young Barbie decided to throw in the Nazis, but his real motivations are unknown. Several months later, after the signing of the German Vatican Concordat on July 20th, 1933, the Bishop of Trier scheduled a rare public showing of that cathedral's famous robe. One of the most famous relics in Catholic Europe, the robe was only exhibited at supreme moments in history, and its showing involved the organization of an international pilgrimage. The bishop could not have invented a much more perfect stroke of international propaganda for the new Nazi authorities, and the robe was supposedly the one worn by Christ on his journey to Golgotha. I think that's a little bit ridiculous, but they believed it. Nazi dignitaries attended the showing along with contingents of uniformed SA. The showing lasted for several months, during which pilgrims from all over Europe made their way to the cathedral for this once-in-a-lifetime glimpse of one of the church's most holy relics. It is one of those scenes one rarely sees in a movie. An ancient Catholic cathedral, files of altar boys, swinging censers, red-robed prelates, chanting in Latin before a sacred relic, and columns of stormtroopers and swastika armbands as the honor guard. Goes on and talking about Barbie, but I think that the whole point of what I was trying to get here was the fact of narco terrorism and that the Nazis were involved in it. With all this talent cropping up in Bolivia, it was inevitable that the phenomenon known as narco-terrorism would be born. Elements of Italian, Argentine, and Bolivian mercenaries, trained and led by former SS officers, formed the security detail known as the melodramatically nomenclatured Fiancés of Death for Bolivia's drug smugglers, and even warded off violent attacks from Colombia's rival Medellin cartel. For some time, it seemed that Barbie and his friends could not reach any higher, and then came July 1980 and the Garcia Meza military coup, masterminded in part by Klaus Barbie and Stefano del Calle, and funded by Argentine intelligence and the shadowy P2 Lodge. The coup ushered in a new period of severe and brutal military repression in the country, as perhaps could be expected of a government created and managed by drug smugglers, terrorists, fascist cultists, and Nazi war criminals. Carlos Later's inspiration had obviously been the Meza Barbie coup, and Nazi gatherings took place rather openly in La Paz, complete with swastika banners and raucous singing of the horse vessel song. and Bolivian clubs and bars. Barbie continued as chief of internal intelligence, and Del Calle went abroad to forge links between the government of Bolivia and such legendary homicidal madmen as Major Roberto de Abenson of El Salvador, the man who ordered the assassination of Bishop Romero. At home, Barbie concentrated on removing all opposition to his growing narcotics trade with the approval and assistance of the government. The foreign press had already identified Barbie as the Butcher of Leon, wanted by the French government, and slowly Barbie's spiderweb would begin to unravel. A civilian government was elected in Bolivia by a population finally driven to outrage by the excesses of the cocaine army, and in February 1983, Barbie was extradited to France to stand trial almost 40 years after the end of World War II. Barbie's story is instructive for two reasons. In the first place, it demonstrates the danger and continuing threat of the Nazi underground against political regimes all over the world. In the second place, Barbie remained a committed Nazi, a man who brought into the cult of Nazism with his whole heart and soul, and who never ever lost faith with the religion of Hitler, Himmler, Hess, and Rosenberg. The racial conceits, the anti-Christian pro-pagan ideology, the anti-communist crusade was all present in Barbie's reign of terror in Bolivia, and included the other organizer of neo-Nazi intrigues, Scorzani and Rudel. Drugs, guns, murder for hire, military coups, instruction in Nazi torture and interrogation techniques, Nazi nightclubs, and the horse vessel song. These are all hallmarks of what is often mistakenly referred to as neo-Nazism. There was nothing neo about Klaus Barbie. He was a genuine article, and there was nothing neo about Colonia Dignidad, the latest in a long line of concentration camp and cult centers, courtesy of the Third Reich. I have a quote here, it's in the book, that I kind of like. It's from Conrad Hayden. It's in a play. I don't exactly understand the context of it, but it's just kind of interesting. The demon of world domination has spoken. He has proclaimed the great secret. The world can be dominated. Bowed with weariness, the people demand subjugation, and those who resist will be tamed by terrible blows and suffering. Modern society is charged with a magical current, which in all men creates the same thoughts. Well, that could have been written by Hitler, or that could have been written by somebody like our friend Crowley. And it really explains the way the Nazis think. And that's exactly the kind of world that they want to rule over, is people in subjugation to them. And whatever it takes to get there, they'll do it.
Well, if we can bring it to an end, at least this segment.
Yeah.
It just strikes me so rich that when you take a look at any of the writings of any people or organization or agency, whatever, that wants this kind of like global domination, it's really important to them. It's always the same stuff. It always comes down to the same things. And it's like, for us, it doesn't make a lot of sense because we don't think in that manner. And we really don't understand what the payout is. Because even if it's a racial thing, like it's like white, black, or something like that, do we think that the people behind any kind of movement to secure that, wouldn't turn around and betray you?
Oh, absolutely not.
It's like the whole mafia thing and stuff. Like everybody thinks they're okay because they're on the inside.
Yeah.
And then, but I mean,
and the thing about the mafia that kind of makes me sick is they've been glamorized, romanticized so much in American society. It's kind of scary. I mean, I don't think the people in areas like Brooklyn or other areas of New York and Chicago and some of the major cities in the Northeast and Midwest where the mafia had such a hold, I don't think the people that lived in those neighborhoods would think of them as heroes. I mean, because they're the people that had to suffer, from, everything from somebody coming in with a protection racket, if you don't pay me X amount of money, your shop might burn up, that kind of thing. And, people being beaten up, people being murdered, thievery, all the things that they do. It's really sickening the way that so much of it has been glamorized, It's kind of indicative of, just the...
Well, there's a romance.
Depravity.
We can't deny there's a romance that's been built around this. I don't want to say the Godfather movies were involved with that. I guess to a certain extent, but I don't know that they. I don't really know that they said this is good, as opposed to The Sopranos, which made it look like it was a good lifestyle.
Well, I think the Godfather. I don't know that they necessarily want to glamorize it, but they kind of romanticized it somewhat, but not nearly to the extent, like you say, of The Sopranos.
No.
I mean, it was like an incremental step up, where, I mean, the character is made to be very sympathetic,
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure, obviously the Mafia are just people, and they have, you could probably relate to them. If you didn't know somebody in the Mafia, you might be friends with them, for that matter. I know that my aunt, who's Italian, her father used to own a restaurant in Racine, Wisconsin, and I think they had a local chapter there, And then these guys would come to his place, him being Italian, and she's a great cook. I know her family cooks well. I've eaten lasagna her mom made, and it's like, and her dad told her, well, we know they're wise guys, but, they don't come here, they don't cause any trouble, and we don't ask any questions, And it's one of those things, If you don't mess with them, you generally don't have too much to worry about, but, you get on the wrong side of these guys, you're dead.
But, this is a reflection of what has happened with all immigration waves into any country.
Oh, yeah.
It goes back to, I remember when I had to do this research on a project, and going into it saying that, from a sociological point of view, and research also, not that this was any way, shape, or form a theory, it was very much real, saying that it was no different in the United States than any other place when a wave of immigrants would come in, and they were not allowed, obviously very welcomed. I mean, as much as we want to say about give us your huddled masses yearning to be free.
Well, your first great wave of immigration is, some of my people, most of my heritage is English, but they're about a quarter of it's Irish. And I know that the Irish suffered terribly when they first came here because, the Native Americans, quote unquote, did not want them here. There was different reasons. One, they were competition for jobs, and two, they were of a different religious background. Just the fact they were Roman Catholic was a problem.
Are you referring to Gangs of New York?
Yeah. Well, I haven't. You
didn't see the movie?
I've seen just a little bit of it, but I don't know. It seemed really way over the top for me. But hey, whatever. I'm just saying that that there were signs posted. My mom told me this. That I guess one of her great uncles said, at one time the Irish, it was very difficult to get a job. And there were even signs up that had an acronym, NINA, No Irish Need Apply. The Irish got their butt kicked off, up one side and down the other. But the elite, the people that really run the show were wanting to bring in immigrants so they could lower wages and make it easier, make more profit and make it easier for them to control the workers.
Well,
And just the way it is, it's the same thing going on now with Hispanics.
Well, but we don't really need anybody. I mean, if you got the job, it's fine. It's crazy. Yeah. But I mean, that's why I used to laugh, because I used to say that the whole idea of the Statue of Liberty was to hang a sign off her torch arm that said "Now hiring."
Yeah.
And there comes a time when that's done. But the Irish came over, and of course, Gangs of New York addresses that with the nativists against the immigrants.
Yeah.
There's a lot more behind it, but I mean, honestly.
Well, it's a fact. I mean, it happened, and then you had other waves coming over. The Italians, the Poles, of course,
Jews.
The Jews always got their butt kicked. They get it kicked everywhere. I mean, it's the way it goes for them.
But what the sociological article broke down, and I think very well, and that is, look, this is understandable. You come into a new country, you are a group of people, and they're not going to let you into the normative structure. Therefore, you have to go around the normative structure, and that is what you do, or you perish. And that's what we've seen time and time again. So in the end, yes, there is somewhat of a melting pot thing that happens, but let's not, ever. Let's not glorify what we think to be a process that was not anything except, at times, brutal.
Well, I'll tell you something that I wasn't aware of, as a teenager and a young man, but I remember there was a great deal of prejudice at the time, especially in the media, especially on television. It was the South is so bad. The South are treating the Negroes so badly, and it was. There were a lot of problems, a lot of segregation. But at least most people in the South, at least, probably knew somebody that was black, and had maybe some kind of interaction with them that was friendly. But the thing that got me was in the 70s, early 70s, when I'd gone to school with black people starting in '64. With they passed the Civil Rights Act,
okay, yeah.
And it was important for President Johnson that Texas, get into the swing of it, and start allowing black people to go to school, and
with
so
whites,
schools were
with
integrated.
whites. Hold on, got to qualify that.
Yeah, with white people.
With whites,
yeah.
okay.
And I mean, it wasn't that big a deal. I remember there was a few fist fights and everything, but it was pretty minor. Then I started seeing these things about the Northeast and especially Boston, where these black kids were getting the daylights beat out of them and they were getting, rocked, and people were having these violent or what broke into violent demonstrations, punch outs. And I'm thinking, wow, the South's the only place, I thought, what a hypocrisy. You people are always trying to nail us as being racially prejudiced, and it's true, there was a great deal of racial prejudice, but it wasn't, on that scale, at least not in Texas where I was, and I thought, wow, man, I was under the impression, they were already going to school with it, everything was integrated and people got along, and it was just, it turned out to be a real crock. It just showed me that, there was a great deal of prejudice all over this country, and that racial and ethnic harmony had not been reached, and
no, that's right.
It just didn't happen.
No, and I have to say, and maybe we can end on this note that
sure.
As I look at everything now, and this is what's going to get really weird, that anybody wants affirmative action anymore. That any particular race necessarily have a proclivity to be on welfare, whatever it is, all the situations that are, I guess, perceived by a public as irritating, annoying, unfair, all this stuff is going to get raised up like a bad rash. You know what I mean? And I sit back and I take a look at what's going on, and I'm like, this is not good. And I think we're headed for that inextricably. I don't think there's any way we're going to avoid it. But, at this point in time, honestly, there's never going to be any harmony. Not that I don't want it to be. Let's just call it what it is. I mean,
the elites, the ruling class, does not want it to be that way.
Of course not.
They want us to fight each other. They want us to be at each other's throats. It's divide and conquer. Oldest trick in the book.
That's true. Absolutely.
And in the South, at one time, around the turn of the century, and even before the turn of the century, I'd say in the 19th to the 20th century, there were a lot of problems with blacks and whites in working class conditions. Like, for example, the dock workers. There were always people that were stirring the whites up, to be opposed to the blacks. Yeah, you may be poor, but you're better than those blacks. And it was, and they're subhuman type. They're a bunch of apes, blah, blah, blah. And they would stir people up, and they would get the working class people who should have been allied with each other, who should have been, looking out for each other's interests. They had them at each other's throats. And as a result, they kept both groups down.
Now, let me add this also. And that is when I was doing this research, when I went back for a second degree, blah, 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 and to get certified to teach, and some of the sociological papers I had to write, the research I found was extremely interesting because, and I think this being accurate, but remember, back in like 93, 94, I mean, I didn't have any idea that this would occur. Now, what one or more sources said was, if you're looking at the amalgamation, the not so smooth melding and melting of populations, or I should say of ethnic groups into a particular country, what it said was, check out what happens if, and of course now it's not if, it's here, and that is if whites who historically have had better opportunities for the better jobs now all of a sudden have to compete with what they have considered minority groups for whatever's available, then you will see whites start to get involved in gang behavior.
Oh, sure.
Now, what I find really interesting is this. Also, when it came to at-risk behavior, whites tended to commit suicide. Minorities don't. They go into gangs and they become violently outward.
Yeah, they don't put it inward. They
no.
You know, they get a gun and blow somebody.
Yeah, but the point was, as these papers said, I mean, and I consider them very valid as I look at it happening before my eyes, and that is when whites are backed against the wall and feel themselves brought down to a level that, of course, has been usually the residence of minorities, then they'll start to enter into gangs. And I think we're to a point where we're going to see a complete fragmentation between, actually, if you really get down to it, I mean, taking the Muslim thing aside, you're going to get, I think, a tri-cornered competition between whites, blacks, and Latinos.
Well, I definitely see racial and ethnic hatreds boiling over into, open violence. I mean, that's just inevitable, and that's coming too. And that's another reason why I recommend that people get firearms. Do not misunderstand me. I do not wish, to be seen as somebody provoking violence toward his fellow man. But my idea is stay home, stay out of sight, and have a firearm there in case somebody wants to break into your house and take what you have and maybe rape your wife and daughter, and et cetera. You know what I'm saying?
I know.
And I'm not, and I know that we're, now that I'm aware that Army intelligence and the Iranians and the Israelis and everybody else is listening in on these programs.
Isn't that great? Yeah. Hi, Turan.
I want to make it clear. I do not. I'm a Christian, and Jesus Christ never told you to go out and kill your fellow man. He never advocated violence of any sort. In fact, he advocated the opposite of violence, and I believe the same. I do not wish to harm anybody, but I do believe in self-defense. And I'm not carrying any signs. I'm not going to any rallies. I'm not, going to agitate against anybody or anything of that nature, but certainly not going to be violent. But, man, you need to protect yourself and your family. And there's some hard times going to come down.
Which is why I want to move to Greenland.
Yeah.
I'll take my chances with the polar bears.
I heard that, man. I mean, I'm seeing this stuff. The far right is really, really having a field day recruiting, I'm sure. I know I may have told you about this, but a couple of years back, my son wanted to buy a particular type of rifle, and we went to a gun show. And this was, I guess, in 2009, right after Obama had been elected. And, oh, my gosh, they had all these, some of it was like openly racist type literature, there. And they had, anti-Obama stickers. Hey, I'm with them. I don't like Obama either, but, a lot of it was, racially. I just don't like his politics. I don't care about his race. But, it became obvious to me that this was extremely, and these people are gunned up to the teeth, man. I mean, there's lots of people in this country. I mean, I own firearms, but, man, people were buying huge amounts of ammunition and semi-automatic weapons, and there's a lot of guns out there in this country, and some of the people that are on the other side of those guns are not people that have your best interest at heart, and so take that into account.
Well, we're just hoping you live in places that nobody wants to go, which I think is a good point.
I tell you, anybody breaks into this apartment is going to wish they hadn't, because they're going to go, wow, what a dump.
There you go. That's it. Yeah, take the pacifist way out.
Dude, these CDs are from the 50s.
Right. I mean, it's like, yo, sorry, you really want to conquer me? Are you nuts?
Oh man, yeah. You know, I don't know. I'm just seeing. You can just see the far right using the anti-immigration thing as a political tool, a recruiting tool. You know, they're pumping that up, man, and they're creating an enemy. And it is a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, illegal immigration is a big problem, and it should be stopped. But it's not going to be because the elites want it that way, and they're going to use that, to exacerbate more tension.
Well, but you see, that's the canard of all of it, and all these people who get really involved in being a Republican or a Democrat never seem to hang around to take a look at what happens or doesn't happen, and that is, look, this situation's been going on since the mid-'80s. I mean, it's ridiculous. All of a sudden, we don't know how to protect our borders. Of course, those I can't understand and see the look. I understand why anybody would want to come in here, given where they've been. But the point is, it's the old story about the lifeboat. How many people you want to take in before we all sink? And I was involved in a couple of radio shows where people who have been actually completely taciturn and reasonable about issues. Two of them happened to be Latinos, and they flipped out when we didn't get on board with let them all come in. I'm like, don't you get it? It's not a thing about we don't like Latinos. It's about the numbers. I don't care where they come from. Don't you get it? Now, I'm sorry that you're Latino and these are Latinos. If they were Norwegians and I'm Norwegian, I'd say stay the hell out.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is, as long as they're like me, it's okay.
Yeah, but, so...
If we had people, trying to come into this country that were from, Iceland or something, they wouldn't be out there worried about it. They'd be opposed to it. Don't let those Icelanders in here.
Hey, the Scandinavians, leave them alone.
Oh, yeah.
Watch it, bro.
You ever see? If we go into all this racial
just leave the Scandinavians alone.
Hey, I'm perfectly fine with the Scandinavians.
Yeah, I know you are.
Especially the women.
Yeah, right. That didn't work that well, did it? No. So,
oh man.
But you're right. I mean,
Husker du, whatever.
Yeah.
The only joke I have. It's hard to have jokes about the Scandinavians, It really is.
Well, Scandinavians are joking to themselves, and I'm allowed to say that. In fact, you know what I'll do? Oh boy, do I have this? All year long, I save a raft of jokes, Christmas jokes that Benny sent me.
All right.
And I thought I had them right at my fingertips here. Damn.
One of these days, I'm going to have to get my Henny Youngman joke book out, do at least a couple of them for you there, just for the audience. I mean, I know they'll love it. Everybody.
Oh, shoot. Well, you did pretty good with that, but
all of a sudden, these people are turning off their computers.
Yeah, well, I can understand why.
Oh man.
Oh man. I thought I had
not
them
going to
all
do
lined
Henny
up.
Youngman again.
Here, King. Here. Oh, that was good. And what I'm referring to is, do you actually remember that Saturday Night Live show?
Yeah, I do. The
damn,
reason I remember it is I saw it again recently. My late cousin left me a whole bunch of DVDs of the old Saturday Night Live show. And I remember you talking to me about it, and I probably saw it at the time, but I've forgotten about it. And I happened to run across that particular show, and it was funny. And here comes old Henny Youngman out there, and man, he was cracking me up. I loved it.
Honestly, because the guy, I mean, you just like him. He's like everybody's grandfather, but the humor was never like slutty. I mean, he was just pure, flat out funny.
Yeah, it was just funny, and he never was mean with it. I mean, he never tried to hurt anybody. A lot of it was directed at himself. It was just self-deprecating humor. He just he could make you laugh at just the way he could turn a phrase.
All right, now that you've given me enough time, I think it is just fitting that we should end this show with the first day of Christmas jokes.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Here we go. And this is from Benny. God bless him. You ready for this?
Sure.
All right. How many chimneys does Santa go down?
I don't know.
Stacks. Oof. All right. What do you call a reindeer wearing earmuffs?
I have no idea.
Anything you want. They can't hear you. All right.
I like that one.
That is good.
That's
Here
a
we
Henny
go.
Youngman type.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that, exactly. Yeah, there's a drum roll
That's
after
good.
any. I'm not going to go and edit this. I'm not putting the drum rolls in, but people believe there's drum rolls here. All right, here's another one. How long should an elf's legs be?
I have no idea.
Just long enough to reach the ground. Oh, that's horrible.
I had a bad feeling that was coming.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, that's an old one.
All right. What do you give a reindeer who eats too much at Christmas?
I have no idea.
Elk, a seltzer. And with that, and I'll leave it at this one.
Oh, that's bad. That's really
Oh, yeah,
bad.
we love him.
That's worse than most of mine.
Hey, look, this is Benny the Shark. This is the guy who's kicking all our butts in the pool. All right.
I'll tell you, man.
He's good.
He is good. I don't know how he does it.
Well, he's gotten death threats, so he's trying to lose.
He's got like the Bart Starr crystal ball or something. I don't know, man.
And remember, you have the bowling tournament coming up, too.
Yeah.
All right.
You know, I wonder if people know about these arcane references to 60s NFL players, you know. Like we brought up Johnny Unitas in the last one, and I just brought up Bart Starr.
Well, you know what?
I wonder, they're probably thinking, boy, these old men have some weird ideas.
Well, I was going to say, we don't care.
We don't.
It's my bat and ball, and I'll do what I want.
Yeah, exactly.
Which you pointed out a number of times.
Yeah, it's your show. You do what you want.
That's right. And what I wish to do is this last joke. I like this the best. Why did Santa's helpers see the doctor after Christmas?
I have no idea.
They had low elf esteem. All right.
Oh, that's
all right.
bad.
And here's
that's stunningly bad.
Yeah, and here's another episode of serious stuff like We Are What We Hated. And we're slapping our thighs at the end of this with these ridiculous jokes that Benny sent, but I love them.
Low elf esteem. I like that one, man. That's good.
It is.
So bad it's good.
Yeah. Anyway, there's even better ones that we're going to get to anyway.
Okay.
So I really like to get rid of you if it's possible. Are you going to come back again?
Well, it's your show. I'll come back if you want.
Well, the door's always open. You know.
Yeah.
I don't put a lock on it.
I'm having fun with it. I mean,
apparently,
it gives me a purpose. You know, tell bad jokes and talk about the Nazis.
Oh yeah. All right. I'm going to end with a Christmas carol of my own choice because yours are absolutely horrible. And by the way, folks, if you're still here at the end of this whole thing, God bless you. First of all, second of all, yeah, I mean,
you have a strong stomach,
yeah,
strong constitution,
and obviously you're hard of hearing. But I will say this: that on untameddimensions.com, if you go to that website where we do the live shows, there'll be a link right at the top of a winter scene. That's a graphic that Jim's put up that will give you access. If you click on that, although there is the first 2 hours of the audio there that's looped, is the Informer in Montgomery when they came on of late. But after that, you've got 6+ hours of Christmas music if you care to put that on in the house. And at the end of that, there'll be the top 10. And I think I might use one of them. I've been doing that with some of the shows right now, which will obviously mark them as being in Christmas time. But who cares? So you were going understand that that's there for you. If you want to loop it, you go to untameddimensions.com, click on the 6 hours of the Vyzygoth Christmas show. Also, if you want to listen to it per link, that's on VyzygothRaw.com, and you go to a Merry Mono Noel Christmas. And we're going to have a show on December 17th, I believe that is, that Saturday. And I'm not going to say we're going to do stuff that's really serious. However, what I want to pretty much do is, if possible, and that is a look backward at 2011 and perhaps a glance forward at 2012. Not that things in the world have ever gone per 12 months out of the year, but we do obviously mark things by that 12-month span. But I would like people to call in also. I'm not going to have any guests on. We're just going to wing it and field calls and such about what you think the most important developments were in 2011 and what might happen in this next year. So anyway, I'd like to have that as our last live show for the year, and so it's not going to be as heavy duty as things we've done in the past, but not necessarily just all light either. So anyway, we'll just see how that all floats. So Larry, thanks a lot for coming on again.
Sure. Enjoyed it.
Now we talked about a couple of things that would transpire either in this show or into another. We kind of looked at the parallels. And some of the things that necessarily aren't parallel, but still are, shall we say, a new version of elements that are going to bring the United States to the same place, unfortunately, that we might have seen with the Reich. Oh, and one thing real quick, and I'm sorry to bring this up, but I can't let it go now that I thought about it.
Okay.
Just as a thought, that the Reich would go into South America, which is, that's interesting. But anyway, that they would also filter down to what we could call, would you not say, the two southernmost countries, Chile and Argentina, correct?
Right.
And I can't get away from it, and this is not the time to get into it.
Antarctica.
There you go.
Yeah, I've been trying to do some research on that. There's a lot of information out there. A lot of it is very sketchy, and some of it's kind of lurid and kind of, science fiction type crap. But hopefully I can find some good information. We can discuss the topic without, just kind of it being in the science fiction vein. Find out what we actually know about it or what is known about it. And it's very difficult because, like I say, a lot of it's just speculation, and some people want it to be real, so they kind of conjecture about it, which isn't very good for historical research.
But, by the fact that here we are in the 21st century. I mean, come on. Why is this place? Yeah, I know it's forbidding and all that jazz, but who cares? I mean, they can do documentaries up the North Pole with polar bears and all this stuff. So what can't humankind conquer for the purpose of a documentary even? So what I'm saying is I think it's really rich that at this point in time, we still don't know a whole lot about it.
Yeah.
And I'll say another thing also, and I can't get over it. I mean, this is something that Paul Sanhu and I kicked around a lot, and that we shouldn't overlook that the prepositions that are used in the Bible are really accurate. And time again, it's like, and the beast came out of the earth, or they came out of the sea. Do you know what I mean?
Well, there's all this speculation and talk about the Nazis having an underground fortress in Antarctica. And we talked about earlier about in the late 40s, right after World War II, that Admiral Byrd went down on a, quote, scientific expedition. Strangely enough, though, he went down with a bunch of warships. I don't know what destroyers are doing on a scientific exhibition.
I know.
And also there were 4,000 Marines. What are Marines doing on a scientific exhibition? I mean, they're not exactly the kind of people that are going to go gather soil samples, It was pretty obvious that some sort of a conflict or a fear of a conflict was going on down there. And it's said, different authors I've seen have said that the Nazis had escaped there and had set up a colony there, and that even prior to World War II in the late 30s, they had started to try to colonize it. And they're saying that research was going on down there into Aryan racial theories. In other words, it was a breeding farm for the Supermen. And other people have talked about it being a place where the quote flying saucers, the UFOs, were being researched also.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's several places in the world where research on that type of craft is being done, and I think there's a good possibility that Area 51 is one of those places. And there are other, Andy talked about. Andy knows a lot about that, and he's very, very hip on that. And I'd like to, explore that. Hopefully, you'll explore that further with him.
Yeah, I'm at the point now when I thought this about this the other day when I would ask Andy or Adam Golightly, or anybody they're connected with, I sometimes get the feeling that the Roswell situation was a government op that was meant to be discovered. Do you see you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they could do the plausible denial, and we could have this complete argument going on for these many decades. Mm-hmm. I just got this feeling it's like, no, they knew about that as well, that it isn't all as extraterrestrial as we think it is. And then again, and I'll say...
Oh, no. I mean, we know for a fact. I mean, there's quite a bit of literature, quite a bit of factual evidence that the Nazis did have, spacecraft of a sort, UFOs, flying saucers, if you want to call them that. I'm sure they were in a very elementary stage at that time, but I mean, I went into quite a few different examples of that when we had the program with Andy. I mean, they were working on these things. Now, the next thing I need to say about that is there's a great deal of evidence that they were being influenced by what I would term interdimensional creatures. And by that, I don't mean aliens from, Uranus or somebody else's anus. I'm talking about creatures that are, of a demonic sort. I'm talking about the Thule Society and the Black Sun Society and the Brill Society. All these secret societies within the Nazi hierarchy were involved with trying to invoke the powers of spiritual darkness, and I believe that they were being given some insight as to how to build these machines. And of course, they had tremendous engineering anyway. They were way advanced in physics and aerospace technology. And I don't think there's any question that some of what they did was influenced by these creatures. And that's not obviously not an original thought from me. No. I mean, there's quite a few people saying that.
But as I said, I heard kind of like some jokes made to the effect that, amongst people who are on these kind of shows and talk about these kind of things, mm-hmm. that the way it is with the world, especially Earth, is that, the idiots and the hoi polloi live on the outside, the elites live on the inside. Mm-hmm. And I used to laugh at that. I don't know that I'm laughing at it so much now. I mean, in the end...
It's not as funny now.
Yeah, and I mean, what does it all mean?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there'll be that time when everything is loosed, and we'll find out. But I look at Scripture now in a different kind of way. When we hear these things about such and such was in the earth, well, I think they're saying it was in the earth, and that probably what we're going to face, as far as a very nasty entity, will come from below rather than above.
Well, I think the Bible, in the book of Revelations, talks about creatures that would come and wreak havoc upon the earth and upon the earth's inhabitants. And I think you're going to see these creatures that I would say demonic creatures that are going to do these things. And I think they've already been doing these things. I think all these abductions are not all being done. I mean, I don't believe any of them are being done by anybody from the planet Xenon. I think these are spiritual entities. Right. This is demonic, and also they have humans who are with them who help. And some of the thing that tipped me off that something was really, really wrong about that story about space aliens. The thing that got me was they say they're from these planets and they're all hundreds and hundreds of years, thousands of years advanced in technology. So why in the world do they do all these weird sexual experiments on people where they go in and probe into somebody's rectum, and do all these just debased, strange. I don't really want to get into it in any
experiments
detail.
Or whatever.
Yeah, but I mean, it seems like sadistic sexual interest on the part of the. If they're so advanced, why don't they have some kind of a probe they just run over, in front of the person and they can. I mean, we have we have X-ray machines now, advanced X-ray machines that can get an awful lot of information without doing any kind of intrusion into the body. Why would they have to intrude into somebody's sex organs or into somebody's anus? I mean, what's that all about? That doesn't make any sense at all.
Well, you didn't mean when you said this, you didn't know what you said. Sitting here, I'm listening to this, and I'm like, with the way you were talking about experimentation, what was the difference between that and what the Nazis' doctors were doing?
Exactly.
Jeez, I mean,
exactly.
Holy mackerel.
I mean, these are, the realm of sexuality is a realm which the demonic seems to take a great deal of interest in. They seem to enjoy sexually abusing humans, through sadistic practices. I mean, this is often done. For example, we were talking about the human elites who practice these strange child sexual abuse rituals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What's that all about? I mean, what is that? I don't. Why would someone want to sexually harm a child?
But it's been with us forever, as you all know, even in Old Testament times.
It's a very important part of Satanism.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
It's really scary. It's beyond hideous. It's a normal person with a normal mind, a normal psychosexual makeup, that would be the most, and is probably the most disgusting form of sex that you can think of. And yet this seems to be foremost on the minds of these people to do these things.
No argument here.
Scary.
No. And
I mean, Aleister Crowley was big on he was a pedophile. He abused children, and they believe that he killed some children in some of his ritual magic. He even talked about what type of children were the best to use for this. I mean, the guy was an incredible scumbag. William Ramsey does an excellent job in his book of exposing this evil, and it's this book's a blockbuster. I really appreciate William for sending it to me.
Yeah.
It's even better than I thought it would. I thought it would be good, but it's way good. It's an excellent book. Anyway.
No, I have no argument with that, and unfortunately, I'll end it with this, and I'm going to end with a very light song, but for the season.
Sure.
But again, it is around the Feast of Saturnalia, around the winter solstice, that we were approaching, and the powers that be hijacked the birth of Christ and juxtaposed it, or actually sunk it amid this pagan high holiday.
Yeah, they quote Christianized a pagan celebration.
But then, I think back to Joan Benet Ramsey, and sorry to say, will there be some other child of high profile?
When is the blood of that little child going to be avenged? When is that little soul going to be avenged?
On that great and faithful day.
Exactly.
And
I don't care who did it. I don't know why they did it, but whoever it is, rest assured, if they're still alive and if they're within the sound of my voice, Almighty God will punish you for this evil, this terrible, terrible evil act that you've taken upon an innocent little child. Almighty God will make sure that you are punished for that. And that makes me feel a lot better about that whole situation.
Well, I mean, it's been like that for millennia, and it will be that till the very end. But yeah,
that little child is only one example
of
many children that have been abused and murdered by these freaks.
And that's why, I mean,
that walk amongst us, and many of them we don't even realize who they are or what they've done.
Yeah. I mean, but the accounts will be settled. At any rate, we'll be back together before come the Feast of Saturnalia. But but anyway, also, I spoke to someone about this the other day too, and it's like, I don't get hung up about this not being Christ's birthday. It's okay, but the thing is now, it like Thanksgiving, and I wish it were a second Thanksgiving, so we didn't have to get into this whole like phony religious thing. But it's still a time when all of us have marked our lives by gatherings of our relatives and friends and such, which, as in our situation, become fewer and fewer. That's just the way it goes until the time comes, right? So, I mean, and that's what I said. I mean, don't get all bent out of shape about whether you believe it's Christ's birth, which this individual doesn't. I think rightly so. The point is just that, hey, it's a family thing or it's a friend thing. It's whatever you have.
To me, it's always great childhood memories.
Yeah, it really is.
The fun I had and fellowship I had with my family, my friends, and gosh, I just love Christmas. Or Xmas or whatever you want to call it, and Thanksgiving is great too. And boy, there's this is just a great time of year. It just is.
Christmas lost its import with me when I started getting belts, socks, and underwear.
Oh yeah.
That's over with, man. Forget it. If I can't
when you're too old for toys. I mean,
damn.
Yeah. You're hoping to get that electric football game, and you got a belt.
Oh, I got that. Yeah, I got that. I tell you what, next time we got to talk about old time Christmas presents and sport games.
Yeah.
No, but I had the Tudor electric game with the guy with the hand. That was great.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right.
That was great, man. The kids nowadays think you're a complete nut talking about that,
Well, we are, but that's all we had to work
with.
with.
Well, yeah, they're right. I mean, but.
Yeah, I mean, that's.
Other than that.
Yeah, the little cotton football. Okay, that's another day.
Yeah.
All right, go home.
Okay.
And I'll see you next week.
Okay. Take it easy, Vic.
Bye.
Bye.